Coming up on Network Africa, the United States warns that the Islamic State West African province, ISWAP, and Boko Haram remain credible threats in West Africa. At least 6,000 Ethiopian refugees arrive in Sudan as Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed rejects peace talks. Plus 3 people killed in fresh post-election clashes in Cote d'Ivoire. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Layo Adegoke. We begin today with security matters as the United States has warned that the Islamic State West Africa province, ISWAP, and Boko Haram remain credible threats in the West Africa region. According to the head of the U.S. Counterterrorism Bureau, Nathan Sales, ISWAP and its affiliates are the vanguard of the Islamic State in the region. The Nigerian government has repeatedly claimed that Islamist militant groups have been technically defeated, but Mr. Sales says that since the loss of the Islamic State group's caliphate in Iraq and Syria, its affiliates in West Africa have become crucial to its survival. He adds that the U.S. would contribute more than $30 million in counterterrorism support to the region over the next year. Well, earlier on, we spoke to a security expert, Chidi Nwanu, who says the United States warning is very credible because Boko Haram still remains a competent and capable force.
Good afternoon and thank you for having me. The warning from the United States is credible in that Boko Haram and ISWAP are still potent threats in West Africa and the Sahel. They've expanded their range not just from the northeast of Nigeria and the Lake Chad Basin, but also are now threatening out towards Gombe and further out towards Plateau. At least we've had allegations of kidnaps along those routes. So in terms of security threats, these two organizations are still extremely credible and still extremely dangerous. Well, the statement that Boko Haram is technically defeated is at least 5 years out of date. It was technically defeated after the offensive in 2015, 2016, and then has regrouped and regenerated and is a completely different beast. So in that regard, it's time that we put that phrase to rest, as Boko Haram is still a competent and capable force, and Nigeria's assertions that it's technically defeated do not really bear out in terms of the current realities on the ground. The reaction to the warning should be in line with what they should be doing anyway, which is better integration amongst the regions. Nigeria would need to improve its regional integration with the other forces. They would need to improve the training and equipment of both the military and the police forces, and also improve governance in the areas that are not under enemy control. I don't think the Islamic State group needs to regroup. I don't think they've been disintegrated or they're not. They've lost any of their fighting strength. To declare a caliphate would not necessarily be in their interests, as that would bring in a lot of international attention that would be harmful to them. But they have a caliphate all in name in the areas that they control around Lake Chad and the Nigeria border and northern Cameroon.
Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has rejected a request for peace talks as the conflict in the Tigray region deepens. The Tigray President Debretsion Gebremichael had earlier written to the African Union last week to request talks, but Prime Minister Abiy said in a tweet that there would be no dialogue until efforts to ascertain the rule of law are achieved. The AU on Monday also called on the federal government of Ethiopia and Tigray state authorities to engage in dialogue. Now, since the conflict erupted last week, hundreds of people are said to have died. Prime Minister Abiy was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2019 for his role in resolving the border conflict with Eritrea. Meanwhile, officials in Sudan say at least 6,000 Ethiopians who are fleeing the fighting in Tigray province have arrived in the country. The Sudanese authorities are preparing for a further 200,000 people to cross over in the coming days. A refugee camp to handle the influx of people is being set up, with aid groups warning of a looming humanitarian crisis. Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has mounted a military offensive in Tigray against local lenders who have challenged the central government authorities. What do you want me to ask you? The chief prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Fatou Bensouda, has welcomed the recent signing of the ceasefire agreement by Libyan parties, but she stressed that victims of crimes committed in Libya must get justice. While briefing a virtual meeting of the Security Council, Ms. Bensouda called on parties to implement the agreement to usher in the much-awaited peace and stability for the people of Libya. She also says that the country remains a high-priority situation for her office, adding that investigations have significantly progressed.
Atrocity crimes in Libya must be reassured that notwithstanding any ceasefire or future agreement, individuals alleged to be responsible for serious crimes falling under the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court will be promptly arrested and surrendered to the court to face charges for their alleged crimes. The non-execution of arrest warrants is the foremost obstacle to our collective capacities to give hope to the people and victims of crimes in Libya. I urge this Council and the Member States to take effective and concrete steps to ensure that safe havens are not provided to fugitives from justice who face serious criminal charges before the International Criminal Court. Inaction in this regard allows abhorrent crimes that are alleged to have been committed in places such as Tarhuna to continue. There is a collective responsibility to ensure ICC warrants of arrest are duly executed. We find ourselves in an age where powerful forces increasingly aim to undermine the cause of international criminal justice as a continuation of politics by other means. What is required today, more than ever, is greater support for the ICC, its independent and impartial work, and the international rule of law, not less.
Well, as part of the integrated plans operationalization for securing elections in the Central African Republic, internal security forces and the MINUSCA police have carried out simulation exercises, staging different scenarios for securing populations and institutions. Several scenarios have been devised to organize these simulation exercises, such as an attack on Bangui by armed groups from the provinces or a popular insurrection. The exercises are part of collaboration between the Central African Army, Internal Security Forces and MINUSCA to secure the elections. Well, at least 3 people have died in fresh clashes in Cote d'Ivoire following President Alassane Ouattara's re-election for a controversial third term. Dozens of people were also injured in the clashes in the south-central town of Mbatu, seen as loyal to opposition candidate Pascal Affi Nguessan, who was arrested on Friday. Mr. Nguessan is facing charges of terrorism and sedition after rejecting President Ouattara's re-election and announcing the establishment of a parallel government. President Ouattara had invited his rival, former President Henry Konan Bédié, for talks following the violence. However, Mr. Bédié is yet to respond to the invitation. Vice President of South Sudan, Riek Machar, has been accused of leadership failure by a top official of his Sudan's People's Liberation Movement in opposition party. The official, Secretary General Peter Tingo, tendered his resignation on Tuesday after serving in the role for 4 years. He accused Mr. Machar of failing to display good leadership and running the party without consultations. Mr. Machar's office has not responded to the accusations yet. Mr. Tingo's resignation is not expected to affect the implementation of a peace agreement that's been signed by Mr. Machar and his political rival, President Salva Kiir, in February after years of conflicts in the country. Meanwhile, the Health Ministry in South Sudan has confirmed an outbreak of measles in 5 regional states. Director General for Preventive Health Services, John Rumunu, says that the ministry and its partners are planning to conduct reactive measles vaccinations in the areas where the outbreaks have been reported. Last week, medical charity Médecins Sans Frontières, MSF, said that 30 children with severe measles were being treated at the facility in Paibo area in the eastern region of the country. MSF is also calling for an urgent vaccination campaign to stop the spread of the contagious disease. Well, the federal government is calling on the National Association of Nigerian Traders to step down its planned evacuation of traders from Ghana following allegations of torture and intimidation. The call came after a meeting in Abuja between the association and the Minister of Interior, Mr. Rauf Aregbesola, to discuss the allegations. They were urged to suspend the action pending when the government rounds off its investigations into the matter. The traders say they are also saddened that ECOWAS has not waded into the issue.
There are businesses have been under lock and key for several months. And these are means of livelihoods of the people. Some of us borrowed money from the banks, and the banks are knocking. Some of us bought goods that have expiry dates, and they are all locked in the shops with keys taken away by the Ghanaian authorities. And we also believe that ECOWAS ought to have risen up to this challenge, even before Nigeria, so that it doesn't look like Nigeria is using a sledgehammer. However, we don't find actions from that supranational body called ECOWAS. It is the responsibility of the government to take up this matter at the ECOWAS court, the level of ECOWAS court, and seek clear interpretation thereof so that we know where we belong.
Preparations for the third South Africa Investment Conference are currently underway, with South Africa halfway to meeting its target of achieving 1.2 trillion rand in investments. This year's conference will focus primarily on ensuring the investment pledges made in 2018 and 2019 are planned projects and not derailed by the COVID-19 pandemic.
This will be the third annual South Africa Investment Conference. The first two pledges had raised 664 billion rand in pledges, and South Africa's Minister for Trade, Industry and Competition, Ibrahim Patel, says this year's edition will not only push for more investment, but will also take stock of the progress in implementation.
Of course, COVID-19 has impacted on the investment climate and on economic performance, on global markets, and we now need to address that. So this conference is an opportunity to assess what progress we've made with getting that 664 billion rand from an idea in the mind of an investor.
In August, Minister Patel was elected as the chair of the ministerial body tasked with finalizing negotiations on the terms for the commencement of the preferential trade agreements under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. We asked him what the priorities the ministerial body will be pushing for the heads of government to sign off on.
There are four critical priorities that we would want to raise with heads of state. The first is to fix a date for the start of trading. That date should be early in 2021 so that we are able to see the benefits progressively and incrementally coming to African countries with the start of trading. The second one is to finalize rules of origin in a number of products so that we are able to have value addition on the African continent. Third area is to identify a meaningful number of tariff lines. And the fourth and final one is an industrialization vision underpinning the start of trading.
This year's conference comes as countries around the world continue to battle the COVID-19 pandemic, with foreign direct investment FDIs projected to drop by 40%, according to the United Nations 2020 World Investment Report.
And I think the key here would be to emphasize the story of resilience and adaptation. to COVID-19 and the opportunities that have been opened up by a new way of doing business, a new way of thinking about supply chains, and also future opportunities.
Economy and Labour analyst Bukani Mgoma says the best time to invest is when the economy is on its knees.
The fact that it is happening is actually given some hope, particularly to the domestic market, that the government is doing something towards making sure that at least, even if we realize half of that 650 billion rand commitment, it will contribute towards the government's reconstruction of the economy. So that's the only issue which I think might work in our favor in terms of the sentiments, that at a political level, something is happening. The government has not abandoned ship, because remember, the best time to invest is when your economy is on its knees. You cannot wait for the economy to stand up, then you start investing, because you're going to be overtaken by events.
The 2020 installment of the South Africa Annual Investment Conference will be held in Sandton, Johannesburg from the 17th to the 18th of November.
Still to come on Network Africa. The United Nations calls for an investigation into reports that militants massacred at least 50 villages in Cabo Delgado. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Unemployment has once again been declared a national emergency, and efforts towards its reduction must be top priority in governance at all levels. This sums up Governor Ifeanyi Okowa's address while inaugurating the Delta State Rural Youth Skill Acquisition Program in Asaba here in Nigeria.
These are the first beneficiaries of the State Rural Youth Skill Acquisition Program, designed by the Delta State government to help young people in rural communities with the necessary skills to become self-reliant.
Having been selected, it's expected of you to take advantage of this program to acquire cutting-edge skills and develop your potentials to manage and reposition your trades business for greater performance. I equally enjoin you to therefore take the training seriously, show absolute commitment, and pay particular attention to every detail so as to get the best of the training program.
Governor Ifeanyi Okowa's opening remarks stresses that the youth are an integral part of the nation's population, and nation building is not complete without them.
This administration has always worked from the premise that the way out of the present unemployment quagmire and attendant poverty is for us to equip the youth with the technical know-how, vocational skills, values and resources to become self-employed and employable.
After engaging the audience with this performance, some of the beneficiaries expressed gratitude for the gesture, promising to utilize the opportunity.
After the training, they give us a starter spark. I believe that's our starting point, and we'll be in the labor market to have more people to work for us.
With this kind of arrangement now, a lot of persons will be able to cater for themselves and even provide job opportunities for others. So it's a great job.
The training programs are expected to focus on agriculture, public works, small and medium enterprises, as well as vocational skills.
The United Nations has urged the authorities in Mozambique to investigate reports that militants massacred at least 50 villages and beheaded women and children in the restive northern region of Cabo Delgado. A statement from the organization says Secretary General Antonio Guterres is shocked by the reports. In a recent attack, reports say Islamist militants turned a football pitch in a village, into an execution ground where they decapitated and chopped bodies. The beheadings are the latest in a series of gruesome attacks that the militants have carried out in gas-rich Cabo Delgado province since 2017. Meanwhile, President Emerson Mnangagwa says Zimbabwe is ready to assist neighboring Mozambique amid an escalating Islamist insurgency in the northern Cabo Delgado province. He tweeted that the security of the region is paramount in the protection of its people. Mozambican leader Felipe Nyusi met Mr. Mnangagwa in May to seek military support from the Southern African Development Community's security body. In October, reports that the U.S. had asked Zimbabwe to assist Mozambique with counterinsurgency operations. Zimbabwe agreed on condition that the U.S. lifts sanctions. Now, the conflict in Mozambique, which broke out in 2017, threatened to destabilize the region as the insurgents have begun making inroads in Tanzania's Mtwara region, which borders Mozambique to the north. The Speaker of Kenya's Senate has allowed senators to wear traditional attire inside the chamber. Senators, both male and female, were previously only allowed into the chambers while dressed formally or in service uniforms, religious attires, or any other attire approved from time to time. While approving the change on Tuesday, Speaker Ken Lusaka said the Constitution allows people to practice their culture. He had been questioned why a senator from the Maasai community was wearing a red beaded wrapper during proceedings, and the red beaded wrapper, also known as shuka, is globally identified with the Maasai. Let's move on to Egypt, where a 12-year-old award-winning table tennis player dazzles with her skills as she plays shoulder to shoulder in teams for grown-ups in Egypt. Let's take a look.
An Egyptian table tennis player has been making waves after ranking #1 in the International Table Tennis Federation's cadet under-15 girls. The first African player to have done so, according to the ITTF. 12-year-old Hannah Golden may not be the youngest player to compete professionally, but her performance in various local, regional and global competitions has seen her rise through the ranks, and she is now well on her way to achieving her Olympic dreams. She played a winning match last year in the Egyptian Capital Championships against 27-year-old Zamalek club player Farah Abdelaziz, who is also ranked among the top 5 senior table tennis players in Africa.
Everyone was astonished, but at the same time happy for me, because they weren't expecting I would win the women's competition. I enjoy playing with older players because I love it when the match is hard. I like playing with the experts, but also the easier ones.
Golda was just 4 years old when she started playing for the Egyptian Al Ahly club, and now almost 7 years later, she has earned herself global recognition.
Hannah Golda is currently the top player globally in the under-15s. Hannah Golda is the Egyptian champion in all events, and this is something that has never happened before in Egypt. Hannah Golda is a champion with the soul of a kid. She is a prodigy, and the whole world is talking about her. God willing, she will be an Olympic champion.
Most recently, she participated in the 2020 ITTF Junior Circuit, Swedish Junior and Cadet Open, winning 2 of the 4 matches played, and last year in the World Cadet Challenge, ITTF World Cadet Challenge, winning 11 out of a total of 15 matches against players from Asia, Latin America and Europe, among others.
Hannah
has determination to win the ball. Her approach to the game is different from many other players, and she can keep playing like this for an hour, and she won't get tired because she wants to be a champion.
The ITTF has described her as a 12-year-old setting unprecedented standards for the continent of Africa.
And that's it on Network Africa today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.